everyone. You're welcome to today's webinar. This webinar is the scheduled webinar for week 3. We only have one webinar and it's happening this Wednesday. So it's on SWOT analysis, as you can see on the screen. So you're all welcome. As usual, we're going to wait for 2 minutes after start time to ensure we have a full room, and then we'll kick off. In the meantime, you can see we have our presenter with us. You can kindly share your name and the country you're joining from so he knows the demographic we have in the house. Welcome, Benson. Welcome, Femi. Welcome, Clement. Thank you so much. You're welcome. If you're just joining, you're in the right place. We're here for SWOT analysis. We have our presenter with us. You can see on the screen as well. So we'll start now, 2 minutes past our start time. And if others join, they'll meet us where we are. So thank you very much for joining in time today. My name is Success, and I will be moderating today's webinar. I'm the Leadership Skill and Development Coordinator, and I'm based in Nigeria. So I want to say thank you for being very active from week 1. This is week 3. And after this webinar, we have week 4 webinars, which are 2 webinars for budgeting. Before we go in, I would like to just quickly talk about the pitch competition. I would always want to remind everyone about the pitch because we have had issues in the past where certain participants were not aware that there was a pitch competition that needed to be registered for. Registration have not started. You'd be informed in the groups when the registration starts. And if you're not on the groups, you would like to also send me an email so I would add you to the closed WhatsApp group. The registration will start and the entries are due November 30th. So if you want to participate in the pitch, you would like to register for the pitch competition, which would happen in December. So thank you very much for joining. I'll be giving an introduction of our presenter. So we have with us today Dr. Samuel Adanovo. He's a young registered pharmacist who hails from Ghana, and he has a strong passion for entrepreneurship. He graduated from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology and now works as the branch manager for a pharmacy in Kumasi. Before he graduated, he started a tech company, Outbrooks Technology Limited, which is currently the CEO. He's also the team lead of the Signature Market Project, designed to support and promote tertiary student entrepreneurship through technology, networking, funding, and exposure. As the lead of this project, he has organized 2 major physical events on the university campus, with major sponsors and big-time resource persons for each event. Several online training modules have also been organized under this project, of which the major attendees were tertiary student entrepreneurs that are hungry to learn. Samuel also happens to be an eloquent and prolific speaker who has been invited to speak at business events and seminars likewise. He has also served in leadership capacities in Christian circles as the president of the Student Fellowship, and he's currently a pastor in training. He has a love for business and entrepreneurship and desires to see other young people develop their skill sets and convert them into profit-making ventures. Thank you very much for joining us, Samuel. We have with us today 2 different focuses. We have that for the CBO and NGO, which are scholars who are interested in starting or started their community-based organizations and their NGOs, and also business focus, which are scholars who have started or interested to start their business startup plans. And I'm sure we're all excited to hear from you. on this note, I will hand it over to you. Thank you.
Okay, please, I hope I can be heard. Thank you very much. I can be heard. Okay, thank you very much. Success and the entire team from Wells Mountain Initiative, I believe. Yes, I want to thank you for organizing this program, for inviting me to be a presenter. I don't take it lightly. I acknowledge it. And I want to thank you. For those of us scholars, as I believe you are called, who have been invited to join, we want to go through briefly a number of things concerning SWOT analysis, as you may have known or heard of. I'm pretty sure quite a number of us have read quite a bit on it. And what I want probably is during this time for you to kindly suspend what you know about SWOT analysis. One thing I've realized is that one of the things that prevents new learning or learning of new things is the belief that a person already knows about the topic. Okay. However, I have also realized that anytime I or anyone else opens their mind, to experience or to hear what anyone has to say, usually it gives you an opportunity to learn new things. Okay, so like I said, we'll dive right in without wasting any more time. So we are going to be looking at SWOT analysis. And I think the subtopic is don't start without a SWOT analysis. So we'll be focusing both on the business aspect and then for the NGO aspect. And I'll be talking about a bit of both. I'll try to combine both of them as I go along. All right, so we just want to take a brief look at the outline. So we have the introduction, then we'll define what a SWOT analysis is. We'll look at understanding the SWOT analysis, the components, the SWOT matrix, then how to perform an effective SWOT analysis. Then we'll look at what not to do when it comes to SWOT analysis. Then we'll take a brief case study, and then probably we'll take questions after we are done. Okay, so at every point in time, any company, business, NGO, organization should be able to have the ability to do analysis or a self-analysis candidly. And I'm sure we all know and understand that without this particular aspect of being able to do a candid self-analysis, the growth of the business or the company, whether an NGO or even sometimes an individual, may be put into question, because without knowing where you stand, it's a bit difficult to move forward, or to know whether you're moving forward, whether you're moving backward, etc., etc. So for businesses particularly, and other organizations, it's good to know where you stand in the market. For example, as a business owner, a person who is into business A or business B, you definitely have competitors, you definitely have people around you, and you should be able to determine where you stand, okay, how well you are doing as a business, to be able to track the metrics and be able to determine your growth capacity, your growth potential, and also be able to plan for the future based on that analysis. So I wrote here that business growth is never accidental or by luck. It is always intentional. And I think that applies to virtually everything, not just business, but I mean, if it's a non-profit organization, even personally as a person, okay, growth is never accidental or by luck. It's always intentional. It takes intentional effort, things that you have to put in place to be able to grow and move forward in the future. So that's the introduction. We'll be moving on So we move quickly to definitions. What is a SWOT analysis? Okay, what is a SWOT analysis? It's a comprehensive framework, okay, and it can be used to do quite a number of things. I've written just two here, but probably I'll mention a few others. It says one, it can be used to determine a business's standing in the competitive market. Like I mentioned earlier, it determines your stand where you are with regards to your competitors around you and the general market or the niche that you are in. Then it says to draw out short and long-term strategic action plans to stimulate business growth. Yes, so based on the analysis, usually, we'll look at that later, but the analysis is not just done for doing sake. It is done in order to be able to draw such plans, short-term, long-term, in order to stimulate, business growth. And the SWOT analysis can even be used for persons, actually for individuals. And we'll look at that. I'll give an example that I actually saw in my reading, which was an interesting example. So the SWOT analysis can be used, determines a business standing in the competitive market, draws out short, long-term strategic plans to stimulate business growth, or even the growth of an NGO. Okay, if you start an NGO, most NGOs are non-profit, for example, you still wouldn't want it to remain at the same place. You still would want it to grow, move to multiple countries, etc., etc. So this SWOT analysis is what would help you to be able to draw out such plans to determine the strategic, outcomes. All right, so we move on. All right, so understanding the SWOT analysis. So what we have to understand about the SWOT analysis is that there are four components of the SWOT analysis. I'll go into the details of that later, but those four can be majorly divided into two. That is the external and the internal factors. So with regards to the internal factors, these are things that tend to be within the business and are best evaluated by members within the organization or the same company or the business. Now, if you note, I have written the varying members within the same company or business. Now, in my time as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, I've realized that a lot of people tend to be very, should I say, optimistic when it comes to the positives of what goes on in their business, and tend to be not too honest with themselves, okay, when it comes to other aspects of their business. So what I've realized is that for the understanding, for the internal factors, rather, it is best to include varying members, several members within the same organization. If you are able to get several members, you are able to get different opinions from various people, some more objective than others, some from different parts of the company. It helps. It's the best to help to get to the best point of understanding of the internal factors that actually drive or weaken the business. Okay, so the external factors are things which usually are seen to be outside of the business, okay, outside of the company. So they include things that happen with the competition, they include things that happen with social, economical factors, sometimes even environmental factors, depending on the kind of organization it is. And usually, these external factors cannot exactly be controlled by the company or by the owner of the company or the members of the company. There are things that may be out of control or out of their control, but the external factors are also very important in the SWOT analysis. Okay, so now we look at the components of the SWOT, okay, which I'm sure all of us may know, but I don't want to assume. where I am, we have this saying that no assumptions. Okay, so we never assume that anybody knows anything, so we still go through it. So SWOT stands for, the S stands for strengths, the W stands for weaknesses, the O stands for opportunities, and then the T stands for threats. Okay, so that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So as you can see from the infographic, the strengths, there's a dumbbell, right? Then the opportunities, there's, what will I call it, a danger sign or warning. Then there's the threats, and then there's the weaknesses. Okay, so usually the strengths and weaknesses, that's the ones on the top part, are usually referred to as the internal factors. So the components of the SWOT analysis. So it says that strengths refer to what the business does best and excels at. Sorry, does best and excels at, as well as what makes it stand out from the competition. Okay, this implies that the strength is usually not something that all competitors possess. All right, so with regards to the strengths, what we need to understand is that the strength is what the company or the business does best, excels at. Okay, usually, not always, but usually is what makes it stand out from the competition. Why a person or a customer, a consumer, a client, whatever, would prefer that particular organization or that particular business. Okay. So usually the strength is not something that all competitors possess. It may be something that a few competitors possess, but it's not usually something that all competitors possess. If that is the case, then most probably it is not a strength. Okay, it is not a strength. But I believe that every business, so long as the business is viable, it should have some strengths, okay? Something that sets it apart from every other competitor, from every other business. Or that for some people, the strength may be the nature of the human resource, the skills that the human resource possess. For some companies, the strength may even be the fact that they were the first to market, okay, and they are the industry leaders in that particular sector. Um, the strength can be quite a number of things, but like I said, the thing to notice that it's something that usually not all competitors possess. So the weaknesses refer to things that prevent the business from performing at its peak. These things, if not addressed, may end up giving the advantage to the competitors. Okay, so like I said, weaknesses are also usually internal. Okay, and one other interesting thing to note, which I haven't indicated on the slide, is that the strengths and weaknesses, usually they are present situations. Okay, so the strengths are usually things that are presently um, the business presently excels at or does best at. And the weaknesses are the things that currently are being a liability to the business or are preventing its growth, preventing it from performing as well as it should. Just like also with an NGO or, whatever you are doing the SWOT analysis with. Okay, so the weaknesses are things that need to be paid attention to, just like the strengths. The strengths and weaknesses are best addressed by introspection. All right, so we move on to the next slide. All right, so it says that opportunities are unique openings that provide good chances for business growth and wider markets. Okay, they usually require a good eye to spot them. Okay, so we have now moved to the external factors. That's the opportunities and the threats. So the opportunities usually are futuristic. Okay, so like I said, the strengths are usually present. The opportunities are usually futuristic, opportunities and threats. So there are things that probably a person with a good eye can look out for and see that, oh, I think probably in some time in the future, or it's not always futuristic though, but for example, the example I'm giving is more in the future. I think probably in some time in the future, this may be a good place to locate ourselves where the market is concerned. I mean, I can give you an easy example. Okay. Social media was present before, the coming of an app like TikTok. Okay. And usually some of those apps initially when they begin, you may not see uh, too many people joining in the beginning. But then when more people start joining, then everybody starts to hear about it and it gets the hype, it catches on, and then more people join. Okay, so could you imagine a company that was able to see and or look at the potential that TikTok had to create such a buzz, and they were one of the first people to use it and to utilize it? In the long run, it would help them. That was such a unique opportunity. Okay, such a unique opportunity for a business. And even though it would have taken quite an amount of effort, probably if it was a company, they would have had to form a whole social media team, to be able to create content continuously for such a space. It would have helped them increase their profits in the long run and other things. So the opportunities, said these may be social or lifestyle changes, or new government policies. So the reason why I mentioned that it's not always in the future is because sometimes, for example, with new government policies, when there's an opportunity, maybe for an NGO, for example, in your country, the government may give some tax exemptions, some um, favorable conditions for non-profit organizations. Okay. And it's good to be able to see that opportunity and take hold of it. Okay. For example, when I was starting my company, Outbrooks Technology Limited, it wasn't, even though it's not a non-profit, they say there's this tax exemption. Okay. Please, hello, can I be heard? It looks like I'm being told. Am I
Yes,
loud
I
enough
can
now?
hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. All right. So where was I? All right. So before I started my business, I was saying that there in our country, there is some tax exemptions for young entrepreneurs between a certain age to a certain age. Okay. And I I knew about it. You see, that's why I mentioned that it's good to have a good eye to be able to know, to read wide. Because when I went to register my company, I think the person probably assumed that I didn't know about this tax exemption. And he already started talking about paying taxes in advance when the company hadn't even made any money. I mean, of course, I know most probably some was going into his pocket or something, but I mean, it's good to get to know of these things, these opportunities, as it were, to be able to favor the cause of your business, of your NGO, and all that. Okay. So threats include factors that can significantly affect the business and its proliferation, the growth of the business. Like I said, they are mostly external. So some of these things, weather patterns, economic factors, I believe most of us are in Africa. Yes, in my country, I'm sure you have all heard of the many things going on in my country and the economic challenges, that are around. So you realize that it cuts across, okay, it affects a lot of businesses. So like I said, these are threats, external factors. Sometimes, most of the time, they are out of our control, okay? Shortage of supplies, shortage of human resources, weather patterns, unnecessary taxes, importation and all that. So these are things that need to be known. Okay, so let's quickly move on. I think my time is going. All right, so we'll move on to the SWOT matrix. Okay, the SWOT matrix. So usually the SWOT analysis is conducted by drawing what is called a SWOT matrix. Okay. Um, I'm sure most of us know this tic-tac-toe, this game that we usually play. And it looks something like that, but it has 4 quadrants, okay, instead of 9. And each quadrant is supposed to represent one of the components. Okay, so usually the internal components are at the top, the external down, the positive components are on the left to be the strengths and then the opportunities, and then the negative ones are on the right. Okay, so let's just look at an example. So this is an example of a SWOT matrix. Okay, so you can see where the strength is, the weaknesses, those are the internal factors. Then the opportunities and the threats are on the bottom. Those are the external factors. So anytime it's being conducted, each of these portions are to be filled. Okay, candidly, the strengths are to be filled, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And then using that, you can come out with a good strategy and a way forward, okay, for the business or for the company organization and all that. Okay. So we are moving on, okay, how to perform an effective SWOT analysis. All right. Okay. So probably I think you'd have to pardon me because I am into business and all that. Um, the NGO part may not be coming out as well. So I may have to go back just briefly. With regards to the strength weaknesses, the strengths, the SWOT analysis for an NGO, even though it may toe the same line, the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats and all that for NGOs may be slightly different from that of a business, a profit-making business. Okay, so for example, one of the main strengths of most NGOs or some NGOs is their ability to, or the fact that a lot of them have volunteers without um, using money for staff costs. Okay, so because it's a nonprofit, most of their personnel, their human resource, uh, volunteers. Okay, and they may have a wide, range of manpower, human resource to do whatever they want to do without necessarily having to remunerate, so they save a lot of costs, but another example is with the weaknesses of NGOs, unfortunately, because NGOs rely on grants, and other things, donors and all that. Their cash flow may not be necessarily very consistent, okay, because with regards to their income, their expenditure, and all that. So even though there are some slight differences, they mostly toe the same line, mostly. So we'll just continue along the line. If there are any questions, we'll take them toward the end. But so this is how to perform an effective SWOT analysis. All right. Okay. So the first point is to find your main objective. Okay. So we don't just conduct SWOT analysis to make us happy, okay, so to speak, but we conduct it for a purpose. So there must be a main objective before an organization is able to conduct that SWOT analysis. For some organizations, the reason why they are conducting the SWOT analysis is just to determine, like I mentioned earlier, their place in the competitive markets, their future strategy, and all that. For some, for a company like mine, for example, next year, hopefully, we'll be launching a particular product in the form of an application, a mobile application, web application, and all that. So before such a launch, conducting a SWOT analysis can even help to, help you understand the potential opportunities, the potential threats, etc., etc., and all that to help you. So find your main objective. That's the first thing. The main objective. What are you looking out for as you are drawing the SWOT analysis? What are you looking out for? All right. So the objective needs to be as detailed as possible. It shouldn't be vague, okay? So that the from the results of the analysis, you can properly put forth a clear path, okay? A clear way to go as a company. All right. All right. So number two, it says gather the right resources. And I think for me, this is one of the points that I am very, very particular about. So the two types of resources that are needed to gather is in the form of data and in the form of human resources. Now, what I've realized is that most people, or quite a lot of people, when they are doing an analysis of any kind, whether SWOT or otherwise, for example, business plans are quite big. You know, I remember when I drew my business plan to start my company, I was so glad that I pitched it to many people, not irrelevant people. I mean, people who know what they're about, family, friends, you know, business experts, people who were very, you know, understanding of the market and the terrain. And I got very, very good input from them. And what I've realized is that the reason why you need to gather the right resources, especially the human resources, in order to conduct an analysis, is that um, generally there is something called a confirmation bias. Okay, human beings are usually prone to confirmation bias. What that means is that a confirmation bias means that whatever I believe already, I tend to skew every information that comes in or interpret every information that comes in according to the lines of what I believe. So when you are conducting a SWOT analysis, people tend to be a bit too, you know, should I say, good to themselves. Okay, they usually may not be able to face the harsh reality of probably the weaknesses they may have, or they may not be able to um, understand that maybe this particular thing that they are classifying as a strength may not even be a strength in the first place. So once you are able to gather people, like I mentioned earlier, from various departments, various, you know, places in your business or in the company, um, you are able to properly get varying views, okay, of what is a strength, what is a weakness, you know, the opportunities and the threats. There are some companies that go to the extent of getting external customers, okay, external clients to be able to be part of, you know, the SWOT analysis or the brainstorming session. Okay, it gives you a more objective viewpoint. All right. Then the gathering of the resources in terms of data is that the data needs to be accurate. Okay. If you are going to be looking at, for example, the threats, things that have to do with your competitors, okay, you need to be able to have the right data. Otherwise, you make an incorrect analysis of quite a number of things. Okay. So let me move on. After gathering the right resources, um, it's good to have what is called a brainstorming session. Okay. So in the brainstorming session, okay, you gather the people. What some people like to do is they give sheets of paper for each of the quadrants. Okay, they give sheets of paper. Okay, so everybody write down what you think the strengths of this company are, what you think the weaknesses are, what you think are some good opportunities, observing externally in market trends, you know, social factors, economical factors, etc., etc., and what are the threats. So it's a brainstorming session. Okay, we know that, or well, I hope we know that in brainstorming sessions, No idea is a bad idea. Okay, so anything goes, just gather the ideas. Okay, no submission is rejected. After that particular session, then things can be trimmed down. Okay, so um, the similar ideas can be grouped together, and then subsequently they are trimmed down after collective agreements. Okay, they are trimmed down to the essential things that most people agree on are the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats. Okay, so um, we are looking at how to perform an effective SWOT analysis. Okay, we looked at first defining your objective. Then we looked at gathering the right resources in two forms, data and then human resources. Okay, and then we looked at the brainstorming session. Okay, so it's good. So we are moving on. So after the matrix has fully been drawn and filled, then you can use an effective strategy, or an effective strategy can be developed, okay, using the cardinal points. So usually, the things that are considered as strengths, as the internal factors that are considered as strengths, can be used to take advantage of the opportunities. Okay, so all right, so the things that are considered as strengths can be used to take advantage of the opportunities. Okay, and can also even be used to try and combat any future threats that may arise. Okay, so usually that is how it's done, an effective strategy. So points are outlined, okay, and then action points. Okay, action points are so important. Like I said, we don't just draw the SWOT analysis for doing it sake, but they are action points that you need to put forth. Okay, so these are strengths, these are weaknesses, these are opportunities, these are threats. How do we make use of the opportunities? Okay, how do we accentuate our strengths to be able to push this business forward or this company forward? And then how do we relinquish the weaknesses? Okay, the weaknesses may not necessarily be out of control. Okay, because the weaknesses of most organizations may come in varied forms, but they may not necessarily be out of control. They can be things that can be mitigated. Okay, and then with the threats as well, you look out for how you can, prevent those threats from greatly impacting the business, right? So draw up the action points and then utilize them. Okay, all right. So we move on. What not to do. What not to do. All right. So the first one, I wrote be biased in your assertion of some components of the SWOT analysis. Okay, be biased. And because that is a bias, like I mentioned, the confirmation bias and all that, it's easy to be biased. And I think what helps that is the varied human resource. Okay, that greatly helps that. Okay. But aside that, I mean, I guess sometimes it's just good to be honest with yourself. Okay. One issue that a lot of entrepreneurs face is that if you have met a person who has that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, usually let me not say we are very optimistic people. Okay. Founders, sometimes CEOs, we are very optimistic people. We like to see the best in everything, because we want our business to move forward. But the truth is that if you are going to do a candid analysis, you are going to have to be honest with yourself. You can't, use your optimism to affect, how you are going to analyze your business standing. Okay, then it says conduct the analysis with a closed loop of feedback data and or resources. So this just goes back to what I mentioned about gathering of the data. Okay, so your data that you have and which you are going to use to draw the analysis should be quite wide and vast should have knowledge of, like I said, the factors, the economic factors, the social factors, environmental factors, the external factors that affect your business. You should have accurate data. You should have vast data, okay, to be able to properly draw the analysis. Then three, be unrealistic. I think this is also similar. The unrealisticness, or yeah, I don't know if there's a word like that, but how unrealistic a person is being usually comes when we're talking about the opportunities. Okay, because there are very few cases that you see that the opportunities have, or an opportunity has afforded a business such a crazily amazing margin of expansion. Okay. And, you know, because of the way things work, usually, even with the opportunities may be good, but um, there is still some amount of organic growth, okay? But there are people who tend to be a bit unrealistic in their um, view of looking at how they can utilize the opportunities, and what it will give them or what it will benefit them in the end. Okay, my time is almost up. And all right, so it says treat all strengths and weaknesses the same. So that's what not to do. So you don't treat all strengths and weaknesses the same. Okay, even though they may be around the same category, okay, there are some strengths that are quote unquote stronger than others. Okay, there are some strengths that are stronger than others, and there are also some weaknesses that are weaker than others, if you'll be honest with yourself. Okay, so all those things need to be taken into consideration. Ooh, I have just about 3 minutes left. Okay, so we want to look at just a brief case study. I'll have to rush through it because of time. So in that case, we'll look at Netflix. Okay. Now, Netflix is one of the most viewed platforms in the world, as we would know. And it has more than 200, I think at this present time, it has more than 200 million subscribers. They are facing a lot of competition. You know them from Amazon, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Hulu, and all that, Disney Plus, and all that. Okay, so we want to do just a brief SWOT analysis for Netflix. Okay, even though we are not in the company. All right, so let's just look at the strength. It says the streaming service enjoys a strong reputation worldwide and has a big name in the market. I think we can all attest to that fact. I think Netflix is probably the biggest streaming platform in the world. It uses data analytics to create algorithms for personalized recommendations, which is true. Has user-centric strategy aimed at keeping the customers happy, which is true. And it's available across different media platforms, phones, tablets, laptops. Very true. Okay. It uses social media channels and emails to attract and retain customers. Excellent. Okay. I happen to follow the Netflix social media platforms. They create content. It's just amazing. The marketing team does very well. All right, so we want to look at the weaknesses. For example, their prime content is majorly aimed at the North American region, which I think is improving, though. I think it's improving because my brothers from Nigeria, I think you attest that now there are quite a lot more Nigerian movies on, Netflix. They may not be the typical, Nollywood movie, but they are still Nigerian. Most of the actors are Nigerian and all that. And then needs to improve quality for non-English speaking areas, which is also true. But I think they are improving that. So it has limited copyright issues, which affects their profits. That is a major weakness with Netflix. Okay, that's a major weakness with Netflix. Weak customer service department that influence consumer satisfaction. And then it says the pricing is higher than the competition, which is true. Netflix recently incorporated this thing where I'm sure most of us know, formerly you used to be able to use somebody's account from very far away and all that, but they have stopped that. They want everybody to have their own account. Surprisingly, that actually increased its sales. So the opportunities, you have opportunities to go into gaming, VR, etc., to improve their social media presence, and then to taper their content and the things on their platform to specialized, countries and areas, continents. All right. Okay, so let's quickly. Sorry, I'm just skipping through because of time. They're losing subscribers to cheaper services like Amazon Prime, Disney. So those are some of the threats. Okay. Saturated markets as subscription rates have slowed down. Well, okay, probably at the time of this particular analysis, I don't know whether that's the case, but then the last one says piracy over Netflix. As Netflix shows a lot of shows around the world, and there are a lot of sites too that have pirated Netflix shows. We know a lot of them. Okay, so that's one of the threats. Okay, that Netflix faces. So what I wanted us to do initially was to suggest action points that would help theoretically, of course, Netflix outperform its competition. But because of the time, I don't know if we may have to just skip to the question. Maybe you can think about the case study in your own time and just suggest to each other, the action points that would help Netflix to outperform its competition in this context, using the threats, the opportunities, the weaknesses, and the strengths that we have gathered here. Yes. So fortunately my time's up. So at this point, I think
Oh,
I'll just
sorry.
hand over.
We can leave it open and anyone
Okay.
can suggest. We have
Okay.
one, so we can still attend to that later.
Okay. All right. All right. Yes. So can anyone suggest anything based on what we have looked at? Any action points that would help Netflix outperform its competition? You can look at the strengths, the opportunities, especially. Yes.
Okay, Dr. Samuel, while we are waiting for suggestions,
Okay.
there's a question here, and it's asking if the future goals and plans of team members in a non-profit is a threat to the continuation of that non-profit, because we're looking at business might be for profit, but then for a non-profit, sometimes we have volunteers as team members, and if
Mhm.
they have other plans and goals, would that be a threat to consider in our SWOT analysis?
If they have other plans and goals.
Yes,
Sorry,
like
can you repeat the
future
latter part
plans
of the
and
question? Yeah.
goals.
Mhm.
Future plans and goals of team members for personal growth, can that serve as a threat?
Oh, okay. Okay. And that serve as a threat. The future. Oh, okay. So the volunteers in an
Yeah.
NGO. Oh,
Mm.
okay. 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 I think I get it. Well, would that serve as a threat? Generally, the availability of human resource, okay, for an NGO may be a positive in the fact that it may be a strength, or it can even be a weakness or a threat. The reason I'm saying that is, like I mentioned, because because the manpower, the human resource for an NGO is generally unpaid. Okay, the NGO has the opportunity to get people on their side to do whatever they need to do without having to take up the cost of paying them. That's for the strength. But for the weakness aspect, unfortunately, also in the same vein, because it is volunteering, okay, people may or may not, is their choice. That's the thing. You cannot necessarily influence the wills of, people, human beings. It's their choice as to whether to volunteer or not. So for some organizations, one of their weaknesses may be the lack of human resources. But with regards to the threats, you see, presently, if an organization has a particular number of volunteers that they are working with, okay, maybe they see it as a strength. I should think that the possible goals and personal goals and aspirations of the volunteers, personally, I don't think I would consider it as a threat because I don't think I would consider it as a threat because it seems a tad too wishful. What I mean by that is, or it seems a tad too abstract, okay? Because if you have volunteers that have agreed to work with you, okay, and you are doing a SWOT analysis, yes, we know that technically in our minds there is a possibility that some may choose to have their own goals and aspirations or leave or something. But well, I think it's here and there. Some people may consider it as a threat. Some people may consider it as a threat. But personally, I don't know if I would consider it as a threat. Yes. I don't know if I'd consider it as a threat.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel. So we have appreciation from Stella and Winnie, and then we have a question from Caleb. He's asking, is it okay to brainstorm with friends and mentors, especially when you are just starting and you have limited resources, that's people? And how will I strike a balance between my bias and theirs to remain objective?
Okay, great, fantastic question. Okay, I'll use the example again of when I was starting my business. Okay, with the analysis I did, okay, your friends, well, your friends, okay, but your mentors, I strongly believe that the reason why the mentors are there, especially if they are into business themselves, is to help you, okay, and to give you a more objective view, okay, of what you are getting into, what you are going into. Because I remember when I was starting, there was a particular business consultant who is still currently one of my mentors that I went to. And I mean, like I said, entrepreneurs, we are very, I wouldn't say happy-go-lucky, but we are very optimistic, oh, believe that the business will work, it must work and all that. But I think he didn't want to shatter my dreams or anything, but he gave me such a candid opinion when he looked at my business plan. He sectioned out portions that he was like, no, just take this out, and don't consider this. This is wrong. This will not help, you know. And so I think that you can still be able to get a candid opinion and do a good analysis if you are using a combination of your friends and mentors, especially sometimes people who are not, um, who don't, how do I put it, who don't have the business at heart. Like, what I mean by that is people who are like external to the business, okay? Like you mentioned, like mentors, okay? I think it's very possible. It's very possible. Just inform them that, oh, this and this is what I want to do. This is the business I want to start. I want to conduct an analysis, and I need your candid opinion on the possible challenges I might face, the possible threats, the opportunities in this market, in this niche, etc., etc. You'll be able to get very good results from that. Yeah. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel, for that. We have another question from Henry, and he's saying, for every problem, there might be a solution, as it is for exploring opportunities from the weaknesses your institution might be faced with. So he's wanting to know if it's possible to use the SWOT matrix or analysis to turn your institution weaknesses to opportunities.
Okay. Yes, I believe it is very possible. Okay. I believe it is very possible. So I'd want to give an example. Okay. I'd want to give an example. It's very possible to turn your weaknesses into very good opportunities. Okay. So, so probably not for an institution. I would use you can, as I mentioned, you can do a SWOT analysis, a personal one on a person. Okay. So let's take, for example, um, a guy who is selling at a coffee shop. Okay. And one of his weaknesses is that he's a bit too chatty. Okay. He spends too much time on one customer. Oh, asking, how are you? How are you doing? How's the family? Etc. 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 Okay. That weakness can always be turned into, depending on what you do with it, it can be turned into an opportunity, and actually a profit-making opportunity. Okay, because you can see that somebody who is like that has good human interpersonal relationships. So you can utilize that person in your company as um, probably somebody who would be good where the marketing is concerned of your company. You can turn it into an opportunity. I strongly believe that an institution can turn weaknesses into opportunities. So because I don't know the specific example or the specific place that you are coming from, I'd give a kind of general answer like this. It is very possible to turn weaknesses into opportunities. It's possible. And I think that's the whole point. That's one of the whole points of the SWOT analysis, to use your strengths to be able to, augment and turn them into opportunities to prevent potential threats. And then even if possible, to also use your weaknesses to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samuel. We are here for the scholars, and they have one more question I see on the Q&A. So
Okay.
we really want to attend to them. Thank you very much for your patience. Genesis is asking, he's appreciating you for the splendid presentation, and he's asking that he would like to know what's the distinction between SWOT analysis and baseline survey or market research. At what point in time is SWOT analysis really needed?
Okay. All right. Thank you for your question. So with the baseline survey or the market research, okay, it is only done before either a business is started or a particular niche is entered into. So the business may already be existing, but before they enter into a particular niche, okay, they may do a baseline survey, market research, okay. But the difference between that and the SWOT analysis is that the SWOT analysis, it is conducted. I even forgot to mention during the presentation something which I'll add. But the SWOT analysis can be conducted before, it can be conducted during. In fact, it is most beneficial also during, okay, while after the business has started or the NGO is already, going on, the organization is going on. You can take a SWOT analysis at a particular point in time. Although, and this is what I forgot to mention, it has its limitations. SWOT analysis has its limitations because it determines the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats at a particular point in time. Okay, that may change over time, especially for startups. Okay, for a startup, things can be quite, they can change, anytime. So, especially for a startup, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats may change. So at what point in time is the SWOT analysis really needed? So it is needed in the beginning, it is needed in the middle when um, you realize that there are things that you want to grow about your business. Things need to grow, things need to improve. You need to move to another level. The SWOT analysis is one of the best ways to be able to draw a way forward. Okay. So truly, actually, the SWOT analysis, most people or some business experts recommend that for a business that already exists, it should be done like every 6 months because of the constant change in, events, factors, external, internal, and all that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel. So for the scenario you gave for the suggestions, where would somebody draw suggestions from? Is it from the weakness or from the threats? When looking for how to outdo your competitors, would you want to look at the threats or the weakness?
Okay. So most of the time, okay, not all of the time, most of the time, you'd like to look at the threats first before the weaknesses. Now, the reason I'd say that is because with the weaknesses, okay, sometimes the weaknesses are things that you cannot, sometimes, like I mentioned, sometimes there are things you can do something about, sometimes there are things that you cannot do something about. Let me give you an example. When we spoke about Netflix, okay, one of their weaknesses was the fact that their price is higher than the competition. Okay. But we wouldn't, or most probably, if I were the Netflix CEO, I wouldn't change that. You see, I wouldn't change that. However, when it comes to the threats, okay, I would rather start from there to look at action points to change than some of the weaknesses, because some of the weaknesses, even though they are weaknesses, they are necessary. I hope you get what I'm saying. Some of the weaknesses, even though they are weaknesses, they are necessary weaknesses. Yeah.
Oh,
So that's
thank
how
you.
I answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are really, really glad to have you here with us. And Sarah is asking a question. She's asking if it's ideal to hire an agency to conduct a SWOT analysis for you. I think that works. There should be people who do that, right?
Well, yes, there are. There are. But the truth is, I think that the agency would still have to get resources, people from your company in order to do that. Yeah, I think they will still have to get, because on their own, they are external to the company. So they can only judge your strengths and your weaknesses based on what they see from the outside. Okay. But there should probably be, you know, organizations that do that. They conduct, analysis for various companies. So if there isn't, I mean, hey, it's a business idea for someone here. So yeah.
Actually. Thank you very much, Dr. Samuel. It's such a pleasure hearing from you today. So I want to turn it back to you quickly to just give 1 minute encouragement to the participants, word of advice before we call it a day.
Okay. Thank you very much. Success once again for the opportunity. For those of us here, okay, what I'd like to encourage us about is the fact that as dark-skinned people, okay, as Black people from Africa, the truth is that Africans have been quite marginalized for many, many years. But I believe that there is something happening in Africa right now. One of the people I follow a lot where business and public speaking is concerned is a man from South Africa called Vusi. Okay, Vusi Tembekwai. And he has broken quite a number of records. And I'm amazed at what is going on in Africa. And I just want to encourage everyone here. I mean, if you are doing a business, I mean, put your all into it. Like, I don't believe, I mean, some people say don't put all your eggs in one basket. Okay. But if the basket is business entrepreneurship, I think you have permission to put all your eggs in one basket. Try. I mean, just pick yourself up, dust yourself off in case you have failed. Something has happened in business. Don't just throw it away. Remember that you are creating a legacy, you are creating impact. And I mean, you are not just doing it for yourself and for what you eat and what your family eats, but for the good of Africa and I mean, for the good of people like us in our community and making a global impact on our world. So I just encourage us, let's do well, score less, right? Let's do well, let's try our best. And I mean, God will help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel. Thank you so much for staying to this point. Everyone would be meeting next week. We have 2 webinars, Tuesday and Thursday, for budgeting, and I look forward to seeing you all. Until then, be safe and take care. Bye.